What is up, guys? Clay Enjoyer here, and it's time to enjoy. And in this video, I'm making a motivational sculpture. Not that I needed motivation personally, but that you guys did. That's definitely what this video is about, and it's definitely not me getting behind, so attempting to give myself more motivation to come back and continue sculpting. Because not that I would forget you guys, because that would be horrible, I would never. But Algebra 2 and Spanish 2 are super fun classes that are definitely allowing me time to sculpt. Obviously not. But this sculpture is pretty self-explanatory so far. It's just a bunch of aluminum foil and clay in a long rectangular shape that I'm attempting to smooth out to make it look somewhat natural. And when I mean natural, I mean completely unnatural, because this is supposed to be a rock of some kind, and there is no rock that would be this geometrically sound. I'm not really sure the word that I'm looking for, but I'm pretty sure rocks don't look like this in nature. And if any meteorologists or rockologists want to disagree with me, go right ahead. My comment sections are pretty darn empty, so you can argue to your heart's content. But with a lot of this main stuff built, I can now build the main part, which is going to go on top, which is the person that is carving themselves out of the rock. Again, I don't know what I was thinking with this. Originally, I was going to make this like an actor or something, or just like a video game character. I don't know why I decided to make the sculpture as a whole, if I'm really being honest, but I don't know. I gotta have ideas from somewhere. Not all of them can be the best ideas, and some are obviously better than others. Since the base is actually the thing that's done completely first this time, I'm actually going to start building up the humanoid on top, instead of the other way around, which is pretty odd, but then again, this base is going to get sidelined a good bit of the time, because some of the time I needed the guy to be on the base, but other times I needed him to be separate, because it was a little bit easier to sculpt. And originally, to save myself some time, I was going to attempt to make a more lean build instead of a bodybuilder build that I usually go with on the chest and the abs, which I am going to work on very soon. I just have to smooth out some things and fill in some dips, because again, I'm trying to make this somewhat humanoid, even though that the guy is cut off around the waist. And with the arms blended in, I can make the chest and blend in the ribcage-esque area. Originally, the reason why I added this ribcage is because I wanted to do a little bit of something different on the anatomy. I wanted to do one of the poses, where bodybuilders will like suck in their stomachs and to make their muscles and like their chest look bigger, I guess. But I kind of didn't do the ab muscle suction thing, but that was also attempting to have a lean build, but again, that just went immediately out of the window. Having a big back also did not help either, because I should have done it a good bit thinner than I did. But then again, I've only really made really strong characters or just eldritch abominations. Of course, looking up pictures of anatomy would actually be helpful, but whenever I tried, the back muscles are always so complicated. But then again, I kind of feel like, now that I think about it, I could have tried a bit harder, because it does kind of look like there's just two butt cheeks for the guy's back, which granted, oh well, I don't know. From afar, granted, it's not that convincing up close, so I'm just gonna avoid my problems and start working on the shoulders, which the shoulders, at least for me, are more easily understood because I can actually see them when I'm looking at reference pictures and sculpting, because obviously I don't have eyes behind my back, I can't see what's going on back there, followed by making the arms. But don't worry, I know the left arm is a little bit long right now, but don't worry, I'm going to only realize this until a little bit later before I reposition the arm. followed by making the triceps and biceps, because I'm leaning into making this character really strong, again, not lean. I never really have a solid idea of what I'm doing, except details, people, details. Now, out of the entire video, this is the only part that I really have to try, because I need to make this hand look kind of like a hand, and not just a square that looks a little bit like a worm at the end of an arm, which is super difficult. So I made sure to do the other one off camera before fitting a nail and a hammer into each fist to make the scene look more dramatic, slash there's implied movement, like he's about to strike the nail and break the rock, followed by making a basic head sculpt, which again, it's been a pretty long time, so I almost forgot how I make heads. But it's just a bunch of clay wrapped around itself, and an aluminum armature base, and some more clay for the obscure facial features. Because I don't know how to explain it, but you know those reference pictures? No, not reference pictures. Motivational pictures, where it's like some guy's carving himself out of stone. I was basically copying one of those, except I also wasn't. I was copying the form, but not the head sculpt, because in my opinion, I kind of copied a little bit of the Loomis head and Squidward, or Handsome Squidward, which honestly I think is pretty funny, but I did want to give him some ears because his head was looking a little bit flat without any other details. But before getting his angle in place, I need to smooth out his neck a little bit, so hopefully his head won't fall off. Because again, I am just terrified that his head is going to fall off, and I really do not want to have to make another one because I am so far behind. I think this is the latest I've ever done a video. This is like 2 months. This is super bad, but I can texture all the rubble that I added off camera right around the base to make it look like our boy is hard at work chiseling himself out of, I don't know, marble, but it's probably going to be like stone or something like that. And I wanted to make sure that the paint scheme was somewhat consistent, so I can start with a black wash over the entire sculpture, including the upper half you just can't see because it's being cut off by the camera at the moment, before then adding in other tones that are also watered down, like greens and browns. I'm trying to make this look like an old, abandoned rock of some kind, even though again, the rocks would not have the shape, but just, except for that, just pretend that it makes sense, followed by doing some highlights that are really not that bright, but I do have to correct them off camera, and now they look at least a little bit better, because they were originally just too flat, and for some reason, I started with a black, but I added white and it turned slightly blue, which I don't know how that happened, but what I do know how it happened is doing a bunch of dry brushing on the rocks to make them look extra detailed, and doing the same thing with a bit of brown as well, because I wanted to give some extra detail and make these rocks look very rocky and just broken, before then doing the same thing all over the little rubble pieces as well. Because for some reason, I just actually liked the base so much more than the main sculpture. I am sorry, because I did feel this was a little bit rushed and this was not my best work. I'll make sure to do better next time. If you thought this sculpture was pretty solid, I hope you come back to watch my next video. Alright, see you in the next video. Bye.